Hello friends, it's Bonnie. Today we are embarking on a new journey on my channel. This is going to be the first episode, what do you call things like this? I don't know. The first video in a new series that I am calling Cringe or Binge. Now this idea came to me when I started reading Fix Her Up by Tessa, which is going to be, as I'm sure you've seen, the topic for this first video episode thing. This book was not on my radar. It is about a baseball player, an ex-baseball player. He had an injury, he was super good, super famous, but his injury really impacted him, and so he moves back to his hometown, and the main female protagonist kind of grew up with him. She's always been like the little sister because he and her brother were best friends, and she's always just treated as sort of the kid, even now when she is 23. Also, she works as a clown, so take that as you will. It's a romance book. Typically I do enjoy romance, especially I think this year I've been reading it a lot more, but this just wasn't super on my radar. I think first of all the title immediately kind of put me off, and so I just didn't really pursue it until a bunch of people were giving it 5-star reviews, and I was like, oh well, if it's some good shit, I'm gonna read it. Narrator voice. It was not good shit. We will get into it, but first I'm just gonna talk about the reason it started this series. I don't know if any of you watch the That's Cringe series by Cody and Noelle. Incredible. If you've never seen a That's Cringe video, basically they watch videos that are really cringy and they just react to them. And so it got me thinking, this book should be on an episode of That's Cringe. Like, how do I bring That's Cringe to booktube? And I didn't want to just do a cringe series and completely like copy them. So then I thought, cringe rhymes with binge. Congrats, bitch, you passed first grade reading comprehension. So basically, this series is gonna follow books that I either cringed, binged, maybe both sometimes. We're gonna talk about why they're cringy or why they're binge worthy. And so it's kind of like a review, but it just makes it easier to do one when you either really hated it or really loved it, kind of in between books, like what do you say? So yeah, that's what this series is going to be. This is the first book. It's cringe. I am going to have a spoiler section at the end because my notes for this weren't like detailed notes. It was just lines and stuff that made me cringe with the page numbers. So we're gonna go through all of those. But first, let me just tell you in a non-spoilery manner why this book was trash. So as I mentioned, follows ex-baseball player, a clown. Literally a clown. Let's start with the writing. The writing was just not good, chief. I should have known that it wasn't going to be when the first line is no freaking way, which compared to some of the other lines that I've read in this is like gold star A+ Pulitzer Prize winning. We'll get into most of the cringiest lines in the spoiler section, but one thing that the main dude calls the girl so often, and it's horrible, he goes, baby girl. Ugh. And it's never in like a cute or sexy way. It's always in a I want to throw up kind of way. Also, things would just randomly be gendered that did not need to be gendered. He had male sweat. He did a male shrug or a male sigh. I'm like, what the fuck is a male sigh? Like, I'm sorry, is this a Sarah J Maas book? Because I've been transported. She would also use like really weird similes and metaphors that just did not make sense. Like her loins twisted like a pretzel, a fuzzy koala bear was doing flips in her stomach. Huh? And beyond just the cringiness, it was just not well written. It was over explained. The inner monologue was so extra because it would just keep rehashing these same thoughts and ideas that the characters have already had, and I'm like, you don't need to tell me that this is how they're feeling because you've already told me this. And don't get me started on telling instead of showing, because she did that so much. Segueing on to the pacing. The very first scene of this book is her going into this guy's apartment. He's naked in bed and like super like down in the dumps, and so she throws melted ice cream and Chinese food on him, and just the whole dynamic, it was just such a strange place to start the book, and I think it threw off the entire length of the rest of the story because I just always felt so out of it, and it just seemed like things should have been moved around. Like at some point, I can't remember how far in it was, but it should have been, I think, talked about more in the beginning, is she starts this Just Us League with her sister-in-law and this other girl who they kept giving us details on her because there's gonna be a spin-off following her story, and I was like, you're not gonna read it, please stop. And so they come up with this like plan to like fix their lives and blah 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 blah, and they have these meetings and they're a club, but like really it's just women hanging out drinking. Like, it's not a club, it's just called having friends. But if that whole thing was gonna be the focus, you know, fix her up, it should have been moved sooner in the story. And it should have felt like more of a focal point, where really it just felt like this random thing that was thrown in, like, oh yeah, we need to try to pass the Bechdel test and set up Rosie's story. That's the girl who's gonna have a spinoff. It never felt important or like it had any real place in the story. And so that just threw off everything. The growing arc of the characters, it messed that up. There's a part at the very end, like the drama that happens probably 20 pages to the end, really pissed me off, and I did not like it. I think if there had been any growth, it kind of really ruined that. And it just didn't properly go through these characters' story arcs. It just felt very scattered and not very important, yet trying to make it a thing at the end. I don't know, it was so weird. I feel like there's a bare bones story in here that would be at least an average romance book, but it needs so much editing and so much rearranging. This kind of felt like a first draft. Moving on to the characters. The whole thing with the main female character, Georgie, she's always treated like the baby of the family because she is the baby of the family, but she feels like she doesn't have any respect. She's a literal clown, so that really doesn't help. I think the storyline could have been done well, but it just wasn't. She would act very immaturely at times and then be like, why does no one treat me like an adult? And also, like, 23, yes, you're an adult, but as a 24-year-old, I don't feel like an adult. You know, like, there's levels of adult. And like I said, the clown thing didn't help because the way it was talked about just made it seem more of like a joke. I think part of that is because I swear at least every 2 pages there's something about her being a clown, like, oh, I'm a clown, have my clown makeup on, I tripped over clown shoes. I was like, okay, we get it, you're a clown. And then the main love interest, ex-baseball player Travis, or should I say Travis Ford, because that's how it goes. She kept saying his full name and it was cringy. He's just kind of an asshole. And the way he's written, it's almost like an alien trying to be human, because whenever he'd have feelings, he'd be like, what is a feeling? What is a relationship? I know do relationship. What is that? Bitch, what the fuck? And also he was just so possessive, that like stereotypical men kind of thing where they're like, oh, this is my woman, you know, look at woman, even when you're not even really that good of friends, and you're like, I am caveman, this woman is my woman, I don't want to marry because I don't know love or relationship, but if another man breathes on her, I will strangle them. I wish that was an exaggeration, but there's a line kind of close to it. So as for the sex scenes, all of them, like the rest of the book, were hella cringy. I think the last one is probably the best, and it's one of those isolated scenes in this where that's not horrible. It was fine, slightly enjoyable maybe, but everything else was so bad that there was just no redeeming this. Obviously, I'm sure you know from that rant that I gave this 1 star. So now I'm going to go into the spoiler section. So if you haven't read this, I mean, I hope you're not planning to and that you'll watch anyway. But if you haven't read it and you are planning to read it, this would be the time you click off. I guess I'm gonna call this the That's Cringe section, because literally I'm just gonna go through everything and say it's cringy. I'm not even gonna talk about it. I'm just gonna read the lines and let you see for yourself. Okay, so when the ex-baseball player Travis comes back to town, he starts working at Georgie's family's construction company just to have something to do. And the first day that he's at work, there's a crowd of people watching him work. And I'm just like, oh my God. I'm filming, can I call you back? Tornado coming. She's gonna die. Anyway, back to our scheduled programming. People were just like watching him work and I was like, really? Page 73, he has to contact Georgie because he said he was gonna fix something for her, but then something came up. But he can't ask her brother for her number because it would be too weird and crossing a line, even though they grew up together all the same. Page 96, when he doesn't show up and he didn't contact her because he was too much of a chicken shit to ask for her number, she hires somebody else to work on her fireplace, and when he shows up, the man is there and he gets all hoo caveman, and he literally goes to the guy and says, can I see your contractor's license, please? I'm sorry, Mr. Ex-baseball player, can we see your contractor's license? Page 110, Georgie is going to a boutique because all her clothes are from like thrift shops because she's not like other girls. And so she's going there and she goes, I'm going to the girly boutique. So after she comes out of this boutique looking so much hotter because she wore clothing that wasn't baggy or something. I think that's the scene too when she's like putting on clothes and she's like, oh my god, I have boobs, like. So she runs into Travis and she's like, I gotta go, I'm going on my date. When she moved to open her driver's side door, Travis's hand appeared above her head and smacked down to keep it closed. Hold on there, baby girl, we're not done. Ew. So then he keeps blocking her from getting into her car. So when she opens it, it hits his arm, the arm that he injured. And suddenly it's like, oh my god, we have to go ice it, I'm canceling my date. I'm sorry? And she apologizes to him, and I don't think he like corrects her to not apologize. He was blocking you from getting in your car. If I hit someone while doing that and they hurt their arm, I'd be like, tough luck, bitch, bye. The guy she was going on a date with, Pete, justice for Pete, man, because what did he do to deserve being treated like this? And I put 124 this whole scene, so let's go see what bullshit was happening on that page. Oh yes, he tells her about a job that he was offered and she was like, yay, that's so great. And so the car swerved a little bit because they're driving, she's driving him to go get ice because he's a freaking child. And so she swerved just a little and he reaches out and there's just this line. With the screech of tires, they swerved onto the shoulder and there he was with a handful of little sister tit. Little sister tit. Page 127. Was she walking the same as usual and he was just noticing every tick-tock of her hips? Page 130. He wanted to drag that zipper down and find out what her butt felt like in his hands, against his tongue. This is only 3 pages after Sister Tit. 133. They're like kind of arguing about like she wants to do stuff and like he's like no or whatever. She says, fine, I wouldn't know how to take full advantage of them anyway. And then his inner monologue is virgin. Alarm bells went off, but he stayed right where he was, listening to their rapid breaths. Just the way, like, it was like, virgin, virgin, virgin. That's how that sentence made me think of it, and I was just like, page 136. God, that one little movement of his thumb set off fireworks below her waist. And he knew it too, because he made an encouraging noise in his throat. One that said, let it happen, baby girl. Disgusting! Then on the next page, she must have used baby girl again because my note just says, say baby girl one more time in all angry capital letters. Then I got to the point where I was just writing page numbers because they were so bad. Like, I think it was 142, 145. Let's just say there's some sex scenes that are not sexy. Page 158 just shows exactly how crazy possessive this dude is. He was full of contradictions lately, wasn't he? Hook up with Georgie again? Nope, bad idea. But he didn't want anyone else to lay a finger on her. Hell, he wasn't all that thrilled knowing about her vibrator. Dale. He's jealous and angry about her vibrator, whose name is Dale. What the fuck? Page 161 uses the word womenfolk and I didn't like that. 186. She traded her clown suit for a loose summer dress and sandals that crisscrossed up her legs and tied below the knee. Hair that she'd hidden beneath an orange wig earlier was in a braid that sat on one shoulder. As she drew closer, he noticed a light sheen on her lips that made him think of bites taken from fresh fruit. Every inch the sweet girl next door, until he let himself notice her tits. Page 188. Her tits. God, her tits. This book made me realize how much I hate the word tits. Page 193. A hungry pulse started in his balls. Page 207, not actually about the 2 main characters this time, but her brother and her brother's wife. Basically, she comes to one of these Just Us League meetings thing that they have, and she comes complaining because her husband didn't eat a lunch, and then the husband walks in. His hair's still wet from the shower. Get in the truck, Kristen. Stephen pointed at Bethany. This is your fault, putting ideas into her head. Just the whole dynamic of men and women in this book is something else. Page 213. In the beginning of the novel, we are informed that there's a contest going on to see who grabs the first date with Travis because he's a known womanizer. And that obviously ended up being Georgie, so one day someone comes to her house and leaves a trophy on her porch. What kind of crazy ass town like is this supposed to be? It's supposed to be in Long Island and I can't tell if it, you know, was supposed to be a small town, a big town. Don't know if this book happened in a week, 3 months. Page 214, bleeping good. She said that out loud. There's literally one in your house. Just, you can curse. Page 227, he somehow notices that her legs were waxed. How he could realize that from looking at them far away, I'm not sure. Page 231, cock tease dress. 237, he's having dinner with her family and he gets angry. He slammed his fist down and started talking. And then Georgie called that moment the great fist pounding. Page 245, you wax this pussy for me. Disgusting! Page 230, clowns didn't have offices because she's a clown, not an adult. but she's an adult. Page 260. Before I introduce you to God. He says this before they're about to have sex for the first time. Is he going to make her orgasm or is he going to kill her? Because introducing you to God. 273. So trusting for a virgin. 274. Never forgets who broke it in. Talking about her vagina. This is the bullshit I had to read with my own 2 eyes. 282. She uses the word male, and from there on out, just about everything is suddenly gendered. The exact wording on 282 is so big and beautiful and male. 283. There was a fuzzy koala doing somersaults in her stomach, tickling her ribs and pressing down on her unmentionable parts. 297. They were going on a run and they stopped by the high school baseball field where they proceed to have sex at the high school baseball field outside for anyone that walks by to view. That sounds like some jail time. Page 298. With her head tipped back, knees in the dirt, a man using her mouth. She never felt more like a woman. So I guess I'll never feel truly like a woman until I give a blowjob. Good to know. Page 299. That's right, I got big and you got tight. I don't even want to keep going through this bullshit. I'm just gonna give you the quick cuts here. At the end, the Just Us League becomes this giant thing with a bunch of women when really, again, it's just hanging out. Page 320, he's talking about how he doesn't even like want a man to breathe on her, basically, but he's also not the kind of man to marry, so he's not the man for her. So she can't be with another man, but he doesn't want to be with her. That's interesting. So at the end of the book, he ends up running into his dad, who was abusive and basically told him he'd be nothing, so he has this like bad relationship with him. And somehow, instead of defending this person that he cares so much about, Georgie, he talks to his dad like this. You honestly think I'd change for a girl? At this point, they were actually dating, because at one point they were fake dating, but now they were actually dating. She's a kid with a kid's crush. What was really stupid about that is that the whole freaking book was her trying not to be seen as a kid, and he does exactly that. And that's when the drama starts, because her brother overhears it and then obviously shares it. So Georgie breaks up with him, and suddenly that makes him realize that he wants to marry her. So he asks her on national television because he is the new voice for a baseball team, and then she hurries to meet him, and in the middle of the highway, because traffic is jammed, she says yes, and that's how the book ends. And trash from start to finish. I don't know how much the truly cringy nature of this book came out in just me reading those quotes, because the context definitely matters too, but just know it was awful, and I hope none of you read it. So if you watched this, thank you so much. I'm sure it was weird and rambly. So that's it for this first cringe or binge. Hopefully the next book I come to talk about is a binge and it's good. We shall see. I'll see you in my next video. Bye!